Welcome. Today's topic is establishing a new lawn by Mecklenburg County Cooperative Extension. So in establishing a new lawn, the first step would be proper grass selection. When you're selecting your grass, you're looking at two different types of grass. There's warm season grasses, there's cool season grasses. The cool season grasses being your turf type tall fescues, ryegrass, fine fescues, different types of bluegrasses, bent grass. The warm season grasses would be Bermuda grass, zoysia grass, centipede, or St. Augustine. For lawns in the Charlotte area, most people would choose a turf type tall fescue. Say it gives us the most green throughout the year. It'll be definitely green in our fall, winter, and spring, and it has the best chance of maintaining some green through the summer. It is the best heat and drought tolerant cool season grass. Um, so that is the reason it is usually most chosen for our area. Some people do like a warm season grass, so you may see a zoysia grass lawn is preferred by some people. That is going to go dormant when we start to get some frost in the late fall, early winter. We get frost, that grass will turn brown and will stay brown throughout the winter and will begin to green back up the following spring. Thing to remember about any of those grasses such as a zoysia lawn is any of the preferred varieties are not available from seed. They're only available as sod or sprigs or plugs. So they are a little more expensive from the beginning and a little tougher job than just spreading some seed. All right, next we're going to look at the timing of when to plant this new lawn. Depends on if we chose a cool season grass or a warm season grass. The cool season grass is the time for planting is September 15th to October 15th. That's a good window of when you want to get that seed down to give it time to germinate in its proper weather. Same with a warm season grass. We're looking at April 15th to May 15th. That's a good time to get started. We say after April 15th because that we shouldn't expect any more frost after April 15th. That's why it's a good time for warm season grass. You do not want that grass to get started and then get hit by a late frost. And if you go April 15th or later, that should not be an issue. Now understand these timings, this is based off of when to start the seed or the plugs. Um, that does not take into account any site preparation. So any grading and soil preparation you need to do needs to take place before the seeding or plugging or sodding. And if you have like a lot of weeds to remove, if it's not many, you can just do it by hand. You can do it right before you're going to plant. You can just do it by hand. But if it's a whole lot of weeds and you're going to use a herbicide, please make sure to read the entire label. Many herbicides you have to wait sometimes up to 6 weeks before you can plant back behind that herbicide. So please pay attention to that and make sure to read your labels. All right, now we want to prepare our site. That's preparing our soil, getting it preparing a good seed bed to grow this plant in. So you want to make sure you remove any weed and debris from the site. We want a clean soil. Go ahead and grade it out. Gentle slopes. Make sure the water is running the way you want the water to run for drainage. A lot of times we have very heavy clay soils in our area, so you may need to amend that soil. Get some good compost and try and incorporate it to a good depth of about 6 inches, good root depth. And you also may want to fertilize that soil, hopefully based off of a soil test you've already taken. Soil test will let you know where the pH is of your soil. It'll let you know your potassium and your phosphorus content also. That'll give you a good idea of what type of fertilizer you will need. If you do not do a soil test, this will be a good time to use a starter fertilizer. Starter fertilizer means it has a higher phosphorus. So if you're looking at a fertilizer bag, that's that middle number in the 3 numbers listed. It's phosphorus, and that phosphorus is there to encourage strong root growth. So that's definitely what we're looking for at this time. And then also you may want to add some lime. Our soils in this area, most of our soils are very acidic soils, usually with a pH around 5.5, 5.5. Grasses like to be at 6.5 or 7 on the pH scale, so you may have to add some lime to get that soil where the pH needs to be. And Once you've done all that, and you may want to go ahead and water that soil down. It helps really settle the soil into place and lets you see where any low areas may be. So that if you see any low area holding water, you may need to go and repair that grade there and, and make sure that you're not going to have any drainage issues. And then just put a good smooth rake on it then to really prep a good seed bed. Because our first option may be to seed this new lawn on our soil. If you want to seed a lawn, which is the most common practice with a turf type tall fescue lawn, is you'll spread seed. You want to use for maybe a rotary spreader. Some people like a drop spreader to evenly distribute the seed over the property. Um, and that would, with a rotary spreader, you may want to just pay attention. It does throw the seed out a little farther than the spreader, so pay attention around any flower beds or any natural areas that you do not want the seed in. Please be aware so that you do not throw seed into those areas. But when you're spreading the seed, you want to do half of the seed in one direction and then come back across in a right angle and spread the other half. What that does, as you see in the diagram here, is creates that cross pattern and helps eliminate any areas you may miss or any thin areas. You hope to really even out the seed a little more with this way. And with the fescue seed, be aware when you're establishing a new lawn, most people seed at a rate of about 10 pounds of seed per 1,000 square feet. That's a good rate to start a fescue lawn with. And then once you get that seed down on that bare soil, you're going to need to cover that with some type of a mulch, usually a straw or a hay of some sort, and then lightly water. And that straw and hay will help conserve moisture around the seed and help hold the seed in place. Another option is sprigging. Sprigging is only effective with a grass such as a zoysia grass or Bermuda grass that runs with stolons and rhizomes to fill areas in. So that's what those sprigs actually are. They're actually stolons and rhizomes of the plant that you are replanting and encouraging them to grow and fill in. So people sprig with these, like we discussed earlier, these zoysia grasses that are not viable from seed. That's why you'd have to sprig a grass like this. You have to you just spread your sprigs evenly over area and then kind of cut them down into the soil so that they're in the soil and they can begin to root. One thing about sprigging is you really have to stay on top of your water. You cannot let those sprigs dry out at all. They will die. So you must just constantly, multiple times throughout the day, just a very light watering. And you'll need to do that for the first few weeks till those sprigs really get established and you start seeing some growth out of them. You've got to really stay on top of that watering. You cannot miss a watering with sprigs. Plugging, very similar concept actually to sprigging, except now you're actually taking basically like a little plant or almost like a little piece of sod, and you're gonna plant those in a grid pattern, usually spaced about 6 to 12 inches apart. And the same thing. This is for a zoysia grass or Bermuda grass, something that's not viable from seed. You would do this way. And that grass also has to have those same runners. It'll fill in those stolons and rhizomes will get moving and filling in those areas in between all the plugs. Same thing again with the moisture. You really have to stay on top of your irrigation. You have very little roots on these plants, very small roots, so you have to just water constantly and keep that very top moist, that top few inches moist. And then another option, probably the most expensive option for establishing a new lawn, is a sodding. Sodding is the most expensive, but it is that instant green lawn. Once you're done laying it, you have a pretty green lawn ready to go. So you want to make sure when you're prepping for that, you got your soil all smoothed out. Go ahead and have that soil under it moist so that those roots on that new sod are instantly touching a moist soil, so they can start growing. And again, like I always say, sod's pretty easy to lay. It's just green side up. Start with a straight edge, green side up, and just keep laying in that brick pattern so that you have those offset seams. Try and pull those seams tight together and just cover your whole area. Um, Once you've got this new lawn planted, you just had a few tips on how to care for that new lawn. Um, like we've already discussed on a few of them, any of these newly planted or seeded areas, you've got to stay on top of your moisture. It's going to take just light sprinklings a few times a day because all the roots are on these plants are just in that very top, maybe inch of soil at the most at this point. So you've really got to stay on top of that watering, just light and constant. And then as the plants start to establish and start to send roots down, you can slowly start backing off the frequency of the watering while increasing the duration. That'll start helping the plant to promote the roots. And then once the grass is actually growing, you begin to mow it. After that third mowing, we call the new lawn established after 3 mowings. So then you'll be at your deep and infrequent watering. That's to really encourage the roots to chase that water down to a depth of hopefully 6 to 8 inches. Um, Also, with your new lawn, you're going to begin mowing on the grasses at 50% above the desired height. So you're going to let that new grass really get to growing up. For example, if you have a fescue lawn, as we say here, that you plan on mowing it at 3 inches, you're going to let it grow on up to about 4 inches tall, and then you'll mow it. Okay, and then when you do mow it, do not pick those clippings up. Let those clippings lay. Those clippings are like free fertilizer for your plant. It also improves the soil structure also. So the only reason you would remove them is if you have a disease of some sort that you're trying to avoid spreading that. That would be the only time to collect your grass clippings. And then also you want to fertilize many new lawns. If it's cool season grass, like I said, we put out fertilizer when we did our soil, when we were establishing our soil, doing our site prep. So we've already had some fertilizer then. So with the cool season grass, you want to come back again in mid to late November and use a winterizer fertilizer. That's usually a good balanced fertilizer with like a 4:1:2 or a 4:1:3 ratio. That's just a good well balanced fertilizer for the cool season grass that time of year. And on a warm season grass that you've started in April or May, you can fertilize those every 2 weeks with a good nitrogen fertilizer to really encourage those grasses to fill in, especially if you started from sprigs or plugs. So you're really trying to push that growth of that nitrogen fertilizer to really get it growing. And you can do that every 2 weeks until it's fully grown in. And one other tip for a new lawn is try and keep the foot traffic to a minimum. We don't want any new foot traffic on our new lawn, at least till we get really good and established. So just try and keep all foot traffic off, at least for the first few weeks if possible. Then lastly, we want to talk about is integrated pest management on our newly established lawns. IPM's idea of using all available prevention and control methods to keep pests from reaching damaging levels in our turf while minimizing the use of any pesticides. So, of course, with IPM, uh, the best strategy is to grow a good, healthy lawn. You want to make sure you've chosen the correct grass. You're watering it and mowing it correctly, and you're fertilizing it correctly. A healthy lawn is able to tolerate many pests and diseases at a low level, and even fight off many weeds. So that's always the best prevention method for pests is a good, healthy lawn. Um, and anytime you're growing these new grasses from seed or sprays or plugs, broadleaf weeds are very common. So you can tolerate a little bit of weeds, know the plant will grow in and overtake some of these weeds. And then that regular mowing will help maintain a lot of those weeds for you too. But if the weeds are severe, some herbicides are available to treat these broadleaf weeds in new seeding. So just make sure to read those labels closely. And then when sodding or plugging, a lot of times you use a pre-emergent that you would put down. That'll control a lot of your annual weeds, such as crabgrass or goosegrass. And most of those pre-emergents you can put out right before you sod or plug so they get in that soil real good and really help you out. Thank you for joining us with establishing a new lawn.